In 1997, police entered a mansion in San Diego and found 39 bodies. They were lying in bunk beds. They were wearing matching black tracksuits and brand new Nike sneakers. Each one had a purple cloth draped over their face and a $5 bill and 3 quarters in their pocket. They hadn't been murdered. They had poisoned themselves, voluntarily, because a 65-year-old former music teacher had convinced them that a spaceship was hiding behind the Hale-Bopp comet and that death was the only way to board it. Their name was Heaven's Gate, and the scariest part of this story isn't how they died, it's how completely ordinary they were before they joined. Engineers, artists, a former college football player, a mother of 5, normal, intelligent, functioning people who woke up one day and decided to drink poison because someone told them it was the logical thing to do. So the question isn't why they did it. The question is, how did someone get inside their head so deeply that death felt like a promotion? The answer is a process, and it works the same way every single time, whether it's Heaven's Gate, Jonestown, or NXIVM, whether it's 1970 or last year. The playbook never changes, and the scariest part, you've already experienced some of these steps, you just didn't recognize them. Here's the thing no one tells you. Nobody joins a cult. Nobody walks through a door and says, "Yes, I'd like to be brainwashed, please." It doesn't work that way. What happens is much simpler and much more dangerous. You join a group of people who seem to genuinely care about you. Cult researchers call this first phase love bombing. And if you've ever started a relationship with someone who seemed almost too perfect in the first few weeks, you already know what this feels like. When NXIVM, the cult led by Keith Raniere that recruited Hollywood actresses and Fortune 500 executives, wanted a new member, they didn't hand them a pamphlet about obedience. They invited them to a personal development seminar, the kind that costs $3,000 a weekend. The room was full of smart, confident, successful people, and they all looked at you like you were special, like you belonged. You'd walk in feeling lost, and within hours, people you'd never met were telling you that you had untapped potential, that they saw something in you, that you were exactly the kind of person they'd been looking for. And here's why it works. Psychologist Robert Cialdini calls it the reciprocity principle. When someone gives you something, attention, validation, belonging, your brain creates a debt. You feel like you owe them. Not with money, with loyalty. Studies show that approximately 70% of cult members are recruited before age 25, and about 40% are college educated. These aren't stupid people. They're people who were going through something. A breakup, a loss, a transition, and someone showed up at exactly the right moment with exactly the right words. Jim Jones recruited thousands of people into People's Temple, the group that ended with over 900 deaths in Jonestown, not by talking about mass suicide. He talked about racial equality, about community, about building a world where everyone mattered. People joined because they wanted to help. Nobody joins a cult. They join the best thing that's ever happened to them, and that's step 1. Once you're in, something shifts. It's subtle at first. So subtle you might not even notice. The group starts suggesting that certain people in your life, your friends, your family, your partner, don't really understand you. Not the way they do. Your old friends are holding you back. Your family is toxic. The outside world is dangerous, confused, corrupt. This is step 2, isolation, and every single cult in history has used it. Jim Jones moved his entire congregation from San Francisco to a compound in the middle of the Guyanese jungle. No phones, no mail, no contact with anyone outside the camp. He installed loudspeakers throughout the compound that played his voice 24 hours a day. Even while people slept, Heaven's Gate moved constantly from city to city, house to house, specifically so members couldn't form connections outside the group. Members gave up their jobs, their bank accounts, their names. They were assigned new identities, new wardrobes, new rules about who they could talk to and what they were allowed to think about. NXIVM told members that their families were suppressives, people who didn't want them to grow. Members were encouraged to cut contact. Some did, willingly. Because by that point, the group felt more like family than their actual family. Dr. Robert Lifton, the psychiatrist who literally wrote the book on thought reform, calls this milieu control. It means controlling the environment so completely that the only information you receive is the information the group wants you to have. And here's why it's so effective. Your brain doesn't evaluate truth in a vacuum. You evaluate truth based on what the people around you believe. That's how human cognition works, through social validation. So when the only people around you are people who all believe the same thing, your brain stops questioning it. Not because you're weak, because that's how every human brain is wired. Once the walls go up, you're ready for step 3. This is where it gets dark. Once you're isolated, the group starts doing something systematic. They start breaking down who you are, not your body, your identity, your sense of self. Cult researchers call this identity erosion. And the tools are devastatingly simple. Confession. In NXIVM, members were required to attend sessions called explorations of meaning. You were placed in front of a group and asked to reveal your deepest fears, your darkest secrets, your most shameful memories, everything. And all of it was recorded. This wasn't therapy. It was ammunition. Those confessions were used as collateral, leverage to keep you in the group. If you ever thought about leaving, they had everything they needed to destroy you. But confession does something even more insidious than creating blackmail material. It breaks the wall between your private self and the group. You no longer have secrets. You no longer have a part of yourself that belongs only to you. The group now owns your entire inner world. Exhaustion. Jim Jones kept his followers awake for days. He called emergency assemblies at 2 in the morning. He ran marathon meetings that lasted until dawn. Members worked 12-hour shifts on 1 meal a day. Sleep deprivation doesn't just make you tired. It dismantles your ability to think critically. After 48 hours without sleep, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning, judgment, and decision-making, essentially goes offline. You become compliant, suggestible, malleable. Renaming. Heaven's Gate members were given new names. In many cults, members shave their heads, change their clothes, change the way they speak. This isn't aesthetic, it's neurological. Your name is one of the most deeply encoded parts of your identity. When you lose it, you lose a piece of the infrastructure that tells your brain who you are. Thought stopping. This is the one that should scare you the most. Members are taught techniques, chanting, repetitive prayer, mantras, designed to shut down critical thinking the moment it starts. If you have a doubt, you chant. If you feel resistance, you pray. If you question the leader, that questioning itself is reframed as weakness, as sin, as evidence that you're not evolved enough. Robert Lifton called this loading the language. The group gives you a vocabulary, a set of buzzwords and phrases that compresses every complex question into a simple, pre-approved answer. That's your ego talking. You're not ready to understand. Trust the process. And eventually, the person who walked through the door, the one with their own thoughts, their own doubts, their own identity, is gone. What's left is a vessel that belongs entirely to the group. This is the question everyone asks. If it's so bad, why don't they just leave? And the answer is because by the time they realize it's bad, leaving feels more terrifying than staying. Cult psychologist Stephen Hassan developed the BITE model: behavior, information, thought, and emotional control. The final piece, emotional control, is the lock on the cage, and it works through one thing: fear. Jim Jones ran suicide drills. He called them white nights. He'd wake the entire camp at 3 in the morning, hand everyone a cup of liquid, and tell them it was poison. Drink it or be shot. Everyone drank. And then he'd tell them it was a test. The poison was fake. This time. He did this over and over, dozens of times. By the time the real poison came, on November 18th, 1978, the act of drinking from that cup was routine. 918 people died that day, including over 300 children. Heaven's Gate members were told that leaving the group meant their souls would be recycled. Not punished, erased, gone forever. No afterlife, no second chance, just nothing. NXIVM held collateral, nude photos, confessions of fabricated crimes, damaging personal information, and told members that everything would be released if they left. Some women had been physically branded with Keith Ranier's initials. The scar was permanent. The message was clear: even if you leave, you'll never be free. Robert Lifton called this last mechanism dispensing of existence. The group decides who has the right to exist. If you leave, you don't just lose your friends, you lose your place in reality. You become nothing. So they stay. Not because they're stupid, not because they're weak, because the group has built a world where leaving feels like dying. So here's what the research tells us. Step 1, they make you feel more loved than you've ever felt. Step 2, they remove every person and source of information that might make you question that love. Step 3, they erase your identity and replace it with theirs. Step 4, they make leaving feel worse than death. 4 steps. That's it. That's the entire playbook. And it has worked on engineers, doctors, actresses, professors, military officers, and mothers. Over and over. Across decades, across continents, across every demographic you can name. Research suggests that 1 in 200 Americans is currently in a high control group right now. And the vast majority of them don't think they're in one, because that's the whole point. And here's the part nobody wants to hear. You don't need a compound in the jungle. You don't need matching tracksuits. You don't even need a charismatic leader. You just need a group that tells you what to think, punishes you for questioning it, and makes you afraid to leave. Look around your own life. The communities you belong to, the ideologies you've adopted, the beliefs you've never questioned because everyone around you shares them. Ask yourself, when was the last time you disagreed with your group? And said it out loud. Because the difference between a community and a cult was never about the beliefs. It was always about what happens when you try to leave.